Mayfield present for us. The title of today's talk is Extract, Transform, Assemble. And it's going to be a marvelous talk. All right, anyways. So two announcements for both you guys as well as anyone outside who's watching. So in October, we're going to have a round of lightning talks instead of just one presenter. So that might be us giving lightning talks, but then there's also a Google form that I've got out on the interwebs for people to sign up in case people from outside Unboxed are interested in giving a talk. So if you guys have some developed friends who might be interested in coming and presenting, like a quick 5-minute talk, make sure you share that with them. The link for anyone who's watching is in the description on YouTube. And if any of you guys want that, I can share that link out with you guys. And then secondly, next month for our August DevTalk, I've got a friend of mine presenting remotely from India. A good friend of mine, Neha Sharma, is a meetup organizer of a humongous meetup in Delhi in India, and she's a Google developer expert. She's been doing like a lot of awesome things these days, so we are privileged to have her next month, so be looking forward to that. Without further ado, Terry.
Alrighty, thank you, Hayden. Again, this is Terry Mayfield. I am a database engineer here at Unboxed Technology, and happy to talk to you today about data modeling in the context of superhero data and just analytics, visualization, things like that. So let's go ahead and get started. So typically, most analytics projects start the same way. They start with a single question. The question is, can you help me answer a few questions? That pretty much means that I will have to figure out a way to organize data to answer questions in a way that can't be answered just based on gut or intuition, things like that. Now, has anyone in this room not seen the Avengers movie, Infinity War? Ugh. This is awkward, because this presentation does contain spoilers.
Just go for it.
As in the end of the movie. So if anyone wants to leave, they can leave now, because honestly, yeah, no, I understand. Lots of spoilers. Yeah. And shame on you for not seeing it.
Wait, the whole presentation? Wait,
yeah.
Can you
yeah, pretty much.
Say, if it's like near the end, you can be like, hey, your ears.
Spoiler warning is now.
Yeah. So like after 5 minutes, you should be good. So you can come back in 5 minutes. All right. So anyone else? I'm gonna spoil the movie right now. All right.
Are you gonna say that everyone dies?
Yeah, literally, yes. That's literally.
That's what you always get.
yeah.
Sounds so Terry.
yeah. So let's go on a quick trip, okay? We're leaving Earth. We're at Earth 1. We're going to Earth 616. Is that right, Harry? Is that where the 616? That's where the Marvel Universe takes place. So, okay, Earth 1, we're going to go through the quantum realm. We're traveling at the speed of light, and we're entering the universe where everything in the Marvel Cinematic Universe takes place. So everyone in this room now, we're in a different world, a world with powers, with abilities, with special people. Welcome. Downside, this just happened. Thanos got the Infinity Gauntlet, snapped his fingers, and half of everyone in the universe just disappeared like that. This is how Avengers ends. So some of the most beloved characters: Black Panther, Star-Lord, and Spider-Man. Gone. Just gone. That's a problem. So people who haven't seen it, emotional stuff. I'm sorry. It's heavy. You seen it?
Oh, yeah.
It's heavy. I haven't cried often in a movie theater, but I cried that day.
You didn't try that. I was there.
I cried. There's tears. Silent tears. This result is unacceptable. So, again, we're on Earth 616, a different place. And let's pretend that Tony Starks comes to us. He comes to the very large Unboxed analytics department and says he needs help figuring out a strategy to defeat Thanos. Right? There's a team of us, 30, all working using SQL and Python. And Tony is a man who understands technology. He understands that there's a tremendous power in data. So in this world, there are a lot of powers and abilities, but none as powerful as data analytics. So we're going to go through the full data analytics process today, from ideation to domination. All right, and you missed the spoiler, and I'll give you a heads up before I go back to spoiler territory. So Tony says to the Unboxed analytics department, all 30 of us, we have a data problem that we need your help with. We need to figure out what pieces we need to put in place to defeat Thanos. And I look at Tony, and I say, you don't have a data problem. You just lost half of the universe. You got beat on different worlds. You got beat in space. You got crushed like Thanos beat you. Then he rewound time and beat you again. He beat you in every possible context, and it wasn't even close. Within 2 hours, he crushed everybody. Data's not your problem. Strategy is your problem. The roster is your problem. And this kind of highlights an important point, and that is there's no problems with data. Data has existed today as it will exist 50 years from now. Data is always okay. The purpose of data is to help solve business problems. And in this case, a universal problem, which is just a problem that I won't go into. Sorry, I almost. All right. So just kind of framing the discussion, we're talking about using data to solve problems. It's not about, dashboards. It's not about pretty charts. It's about culture and context. And how can we use data to guide decisions and solve business problems? And the goal of the analytics department here at Unboxed Technology is to be a valued partner in the decision-making process and help and generate actionable recommendations. So in this case, we want to help Tony solve his very big problem, which I won't mention again. And so we'll talk about the process. We're going through that step by step. And again, the goal is to go from ideation to domination. And this is the framework we're going to use. So whenever you start a data engineering or analytics project, you're not just going to start pulling data. The first thing you do is understand the objective, the goals of what you're trying to accomplish in the end. So you start with understanding the business questions that need to be answered. And in every situation, when you're building out a data mart or data warehouse, you're building to answer business questions. The next step is to develop an analysis plan. So how will you actually execute the answering of those business questions? Once you have those two categories covered, then you go to data collection. And then you start delving in, and as you get to the fun stuff, which is the insights. Once you go through all the insights, then you kind of understand the context, you know what's going on, and then you can provide recommendations to the stakeholders. In this case, it's Tony Starks. Any questions at this point? All right. So the first step is the business question step, and the goal is to identify the real questions that your team is looking to answer. So in this case, in this universe, what are some of the questions we're looking to answer? How can we survive? That's a good one. Anyone else?
Who can defeat Thanos?
That's a great question. What else?
Who's left?
Who's left? Yep. Anyone else? All right. So again, Thanos crushed the Avengers in horrible fashion. So the questions that we need to ask are basically surrounding two different categories. How has Thanos been defeated in the past? And who is best equipped to beat him in the future? Any questions there? Anything you want us to add to that?
Why do you focus on how from the past and who in the future?
So when you're building out an analytics like environment, one thing that you'll typically do is use past behavior to use past data to historical data to predict future behavior, right? So we have to have a catalog of what happened in the past in order to predict, what's going to happen in the future. For example, when Walmart is trying to decide what to stock in November in the stores in Omaha, Nebraska, they look at what sold well last year in November in Omaha, and that's what they use to predict what to stock this year. Same thing here. In order to get a game plan for how to beat Thanos in the future, we need to know how he's beaten in the past.
Quick question. So
Yeah.
follow-up question to Kevin's. So is your second question, could you, would an equivalent question be, how can Thanos be beat in the future? Like, is that the same as this second question, or is that like a slightly different question?
That's a good point. That could be just kind of a derivation of the same question. I'm focused on the who because who defeated Thanos in the past might not be there in the present, so it can't contribute to the future.
Gotcha.
Anything else? All right. And another important thing is that we need to, when developing data marts or dimensional modeling, we need to focus on a primary objective. So it's important, with regards to questions that we have a single goal in mind. And once if we decide to in the future, we won't in this presentation, but we decide in the future to go into machine learning, we will train our models towards that primary objective. So in this case, what's the primary objective? Defeat Thanos. That's it. So everything that we're pulling into our data mart, every piece of data that we're pulling is focused on that one thing. There's nothing. There's no fat. It's just that. It's important to keep our data mart as light as possible and make sure that we can analyze things in that context.
Your point about not being available, like in the past, is like conditional commas, not working the edge.
I'm sorry.
So your point about not being available in the past is like conditional comments not being available in Microsoft Edge.
Additional comment.
Conditional comments.
Conditional comments. Yeah. Well.
Like a solution that used to work is no longer available.
Exactly. You're exactly right. Exactly. Yep. So for example, let's say character X defeated Thanos routinely in the past. He may not be available in the future, and I want to say what character X is out of respect for you, sir. All right. So in order to figure out how was Thanos defeated in the past, what options do we have?
What's that?
In order to figure out how Thanos was defeated in the past, what options do we have with regards to research?
Just talk to Harry.
Talk to Harry, that's excellent. Yeah. Yeah, excellent point.
Go purchase all of the Marvel books, the comics, and read them. Figure out where Thanos did.
Exactly. That's what we're going to do. But realistically, there's a lot of comic books that feature Thanos. 274 to be exact. So we can't realistically read all of them. Well, I didn't read all of them. Yeah. But what we can do is get information from them and analyze that data in order to determine, what happened in those comic books. So that covers the business question category of the data process. Next up is the analysis plan. So what we need to do is establish the methodologies for performing the analysis. So we need to have goals, an hypothesis, a methodology, data specifications, and a project plan. We're not going to go too in depth, but let's assume the stacked Unboxed analytics team on Earth 616 did all that. What is one hypothesis that you might have with regards to how Thanos might be defeated?
Captain Marvel.
Okay. Captain Marvel, okay. That's an excellent hypothesis. Anything else?
For you or what?
Whatever. Any category of hypothesis that you want. And the purpose of the hypothesis is to kind of put into context the solutions that you get, the results that you get. So like, for example, my hypothesis would be that the combined powers of the Avengers could defeat Thanos. And the combined powers of the Fantastic Four could not. It might be that certain heroes, like Thor has a chance one-on-one, whereas Hawkeye does not. So things like that put into context the results, and so it helps you kind of highlight and see outliers in the data. So any thoughts on any other hypotheses on what we might see or anything? Warlock, huh? That's interesting you say that. Okay.
Oh, dang it. I've seen the movie now.
He's not in the movie, so don't worry. Yeah. All right. So whenever you start talking about analysis plans in the context of something like this, you might get this kind of look. You know, like we don't have time for an analysis plan. But as we all know, failure to plan is planning to fail. And in this case, again. So it's important to take the time to plan so we can succeed the second time around. So what we're going to use is Python and SQL Server to extract and store data that we can later analyze to determine the best course of action that Tony can follow in order to defeat Thanos the second time around. Any questions? All right. So let's get into a little business context. Whenever we're doing analytics, in my opinion, it's more important to understand the business than it is to understand data. You can always find someone to, like create something, but it's hard to find someone who understands the data or the business well enough in order to model our questions and model the types of answers that we need. So my first step in trying to understand the business context of the Marvel Universe was talking to the most knowledgeable person I've ever known with regards to superheroes, and that is Harry Heckel. Now, Harry, a couple questions for you.
Okay.
Has Thanos ever defeated the heroes and that been the end of a series?
No.
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 Okay. In the comics, do good guys always win in the end?
Yes.
Okay. In the comics, do good guys typically lose in the middle?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Business context. And this holds true all through Marvel, through my research. Not so much in DC, though. Because DC tried to throw a curveball with the death of Superman, where the good guy actually lost in that case, and it was horrible and sad, ruined my childhood, but that's okay.
I have a question around that. Are
Yes.
anomalies in past data something to focus on or something to discard?
Discard. Because anomalies can always happen. And anomalies aren't typically predictive of future behavior. So for example, if we're analyzing Marvel data, we would ignore the Death of Superman comic series because that's not something that we would expect to happen in the future, often. Although it did sell well, so maybe, I don't know. Great question. So we've now gone through the business question and the data analysis phase of the data process. We were project plan. We know we have to kind of move kind of quick because, Thanos is doing its thing. So now we're going through data collection. So again, I put all the code into the developer chat room. So if anyone wants to look at the code while I'm going through this, feel free. Yeah.
I'll make it public afterwards.
Okay. And I've taken out all the passwords and stuff so it can be made public. All right. 1 second. So one really awesome thing is that Marvel has a great developer portal where we can get all kinds of information on different characters and comic books and series and all kinds of things related to the Marvel universe. So in order to do our research, we could go out and buy 274 comic books that feature Thanos, but that's not realistic. Each one's gonna cost you about $15. So that's gonna be very expensive. Instead, we can just mine this developer website and pull the information, so we can access to it all. So what I did was I used Python to set up a series of scripts to pull data from the various endpoints on that developer website. I would love to. Oh dear.
Don't stress it.
All right.
I don't want to throw you off.
What do you have? View? Oh, sorry. I can't even see that. Very last one?
Sorry, we can look at it later.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Yeah. I'm trying the trick of Control plus not working. Oh no, stop that. What are you doing? Okay. So what I did was I set up a class that has a series of functions that connect to the different endpoints on the Marvel API. So for example, I have a function that pulls all of the information related to characters. So this type of information, for example, character name, description, all the comics they're featured in. We can pull all the comics grouped by character names, all the events, series, stories. So we can pull a ton of information. And for this project, we focus on just the comic books. All the comic books that are main canon that feature Thanos. So the first thing, So the first thing I did was, I said, set up a class, a Python class that has functions to call the API and pull data. And then I set up a series of scripts that take the data that was pulled and persist the data into SQL server databases, into staging tables. So the goal is to get out the data as quickly as possible and put it into SQL so we can analyze it further. So the steps are, connect to the database, call the function that can connect to the Marvel API, pass my public and private key. One thing I learned too was that Marvel doesn't like it when you pull thousands and thousands of records in a single day. So I was banned for about a week from the Marvel API because of that. So it's important to have limits on how much data you pull at any one time. If you're under 3,000 hits per day, you're typically fine. I hit 20,000 in one day. That was not ideal. I had to call the customer service of Marvel and say, hey, I'm sorry, and can I be let back in? So not ideal. So now I limit this to 300 hits any one time. And I only pull 20 records at a time, so 300 iterations of 20 records is the most I do at any one time. So we pull information and then we persist it to a staging table, and this staging table contains all of the comics that feature Thanos. This entire analysis is based on comic books that feature Thanos and how he is going to be defeated. Any questions at this point? And again, this code is on GitHub. You can look at it in more depth a little bit later on. But the focus of this presentation is going to be more on the analysis than on the ETL process to get the data into the tables. All right. Yes, sir.
In your code, you do something that says stage.resort.
Yes. Yes. Well, that's a great question, Nick. What that is I store, and you definitely can't see this, I'm sure, but wait a second. So basically, I pull data from the Marvel API and persist it into a table so I have access to it. Once I have all the comic books that feature Thanos, it actually was 298, I then take those comic IDs and use those to pull every character that's ever been featured in a comic book that features Thanos. So for example, and I create something like a character catalog. So for example, in one comic book featuring Thanos, we have Adam Warlock, Captain Marvel, Ego, Gamora, Guardians of the Galaxy, Loki, Bad Adam Warlock, Thanos, and Wolverine. That's a pretty awesome comic book. And we can see in the API that this is how the data comes in. We pluck this data from the JSON and persist it in a tabular fashion. And this comic book's called Infinity Countdown Prime, which is one that I might actually buy because it sounds pretty awesome. So again, the process is to fetch data from every comic book that features Thanos, grab every character that's ever been in a comic book featuring Thanos, grab all the details from a different API, from a different endpoint. So things like what series was it in, what's the name, what's the issue number, things like that. And that's how we build up like the information regarding the comics. So one quick point of note, as Harry pointed out, every time at the end of a series, the bad guy wins. So we know if that comic book is the last in the series, then the good guys won and Thanos lost. We also know that every comic book that's not the end of a series, Thanos won and the heroes lost. So that's how we know like the result. So you'll see here in the comic details table, we pulled data related to the series, and then we sort by the issue number to figure out where the series starts and ends. Any question on that?
So pretty much you're having to like use your knowledge of the business context in this case to figure out the outcome of who won.
Exactly. As opposed to reading every comic book and then figuring it out. Luckily, we had an expert. Now, data is not always easy or pretty. One of the important things was to understand the characteristics of all of the heroes. So what I had to do in order to kind of push this analysis to the next level was to analyze every single character that had ever been featured in a comic book that had Thanos, and analyze them from the perspective of their alignment, what team they were on, and then this is called a power grid. Their intelligence, their strength, their speed, their durability, their power, and their ability to fight. And this is how we're going to predict into the future who is best equipped to defeat Thanos. Then also we have something called an X factor. This is if the character is better than Thanos in a category, then they have an advantage, right? So, for example, Hawkeye is inferior to Thanos in every single possible way. So there's no scenario ever. If you fight him a million times, you lose a million times. So he's no advantage. But certain characters, for example, Adam Warlock, as you mentioned earlier, is more durable than Thanos and more powerful. So he's an advantage. So if you have an advantage, then you get extra points for what we're calling an X factor. So a 5% bump in your ability to take on Thanos in a one-on-one battle. And so his ability is basically a function of his normal rating, and then his X factor is how much his power can go up based on his ability to, he'll flex between 88.17, which is his rating according to Marvel, to 96.98, which is his ability to use his advantage for in a fight. So you're probably wondering how he got these numbers. And this process was painful. So there's no one reliable source for Marvel hero power stats. So what I have to do is go through 3 different websites and kind of aggregate the results. So the Marvel Universe Wiki page has power stats, but in cases you see some serious anomalies. For example, the most powerful character in this universe, according to Marvel Wiki, is Captain Britain. I don't think that's true. I just don't. I don't think he's beating Thanos one-on-one. I don't see that. So when there are anomalies like this, you know, like we kind of manage those by going to also superhero database. This is a pretty good website for superhero powers and abilities. And then you can look at Captain Britain here, and he may not be here actually, but oh, he is. That looks a little more realistic. And also we have another website which has powers too. So like I aggregate the powers from these 3 websites to get a realistic look at each character's powers. Any questions there?
Did you, so like aggregating all these results, did you like go through one by one for each hero and like do that manually, or? Okay.
Yes.
I
Yes.
guess like these don't have APIs, but in a perfect world, I guess you could like screen scrape these things, but
Yeah,
that might take even longer.
I tried to screen scrape them, but there's some weirdness on the pages that messed up the ability to do that. So yeah, I went through one by one, all 142 times. Yeah.
So I have a question around that, just more
Sure.
broadly around how important it is to organize your data and do your due
Sure,
diligence.
absolutely.
The law of diminishing returns will tell you if you looked at like 18 other websites, you probably wouldn't get the relative output. But how much do you try to optimize for cleaning up the data versus just throwing data in there?
So in this case, so outliers would be very damaging to the result, because if you send out Captain Britain to face Thanos, you're gonna lose. Like, so data quality with regards to data accuracy with regards to the character profiles was imperative. So sometimes it doesn't matter as much. Like for example, if there's some discrepancies with the comics as far as like a series or 2, that's okay. Would not be okay would be, you know, like messing up a character's abilities. Does that answer your question, or?
Yeah. So
Okay.
did you track the deviations between the 3 or any of that, or you just discard it? Can't trust it.
I discarded Captain Britain's power stats from the wiki, yeah, and I read the other 2. I'm sorry?
He was the only one?
No. There's some characters too that were like, there's some characters that are rated all 1s that were pretty powerful, like Mephisto. Here, you can kind of like
He's up there.
wildly powerful.
Wildly powerful, magical, super enemy, Silver Surfer, Doctor Strange, Dire
Yeah.
the universe. Yeah, he's big bad guy.
And he was listed as all 1s in one website. So like, in those cases, I just discarded it. It took a lot of domain knowledge. Just you know, sometimes I looked at someone's abilities. Like for example, Black Widow. I told Drew this earlier. She was listed at 100 for combat. No. Like if Black Widow fights Thanos, she's not gonna win. So like, domain knowledge is really important, and that's why, in my opinion, it's more important to understand the business a lot of times than it is to understand the data, because you can know when something looks out of place.
So I have
Yes. Yeah. Like for example, if someone was a 50 intelligence, like Captain America was a 50 intelligence. Seemed a little low, a little hurtful to Captain America, but like, I was gonna fight that battle. You know, like that's in the range of acceptable. But like Captain Britain being all 7s, all 100% across the board, that doesn't make sense. So.
Just follow up Kevin's question.
Sure.
About how much time you spent on collecting data, right?
Yep.
What led you to determine that these data elements were required to answer your question? What made you go through all that effort?
That's a great question. So the goal is to beat Thanos. All right, and that's our only objective. And Thanos is exceptionally powerful. All right, Thanos is smart, he's strong, he's fast, he's durable, he's powerful, he's great at fighting, and he wins most of the time. Right? So if you're gonna fight him, there's 2 steps. You have to A, in the context of this problem, get the Infinity Gauntlet off of him, and then B, defeat him in battle. Because in the Avengers movie, at one point, earmuffs, yeah, they're trying to get the glove off of him. And the thought is, oh, get the glove off him, we'll beat him. But he's more powerful than everyone on that planet. So he would just get the glove off him, he would just punch everybody and take him back. Right? So you have to not only get the glove off, you also have to beat him in battle. And so you need powerful people to beat him in battle. Because you can't have like Black Widow and Hawkeye fight him. It's just not going to work. He's just going to punch him and take it back. So you need people who are powerful and who have a diverse set of skills in order to defeat him.
I guess the question really is, could you have found an answer without all of this
Yeah.
involvement, and then tested your hypothesis and determined it's not reasonable, and then move to
Mhm.
the next, right? Just getting back to when do you get to that level of delving into detail, right?
Yep.
How do you make that decision? Is that
That's a good question.
analyst decision, or is that a bean counter decision?
Mhm.
Where would you put that?
I think that comes into play with the analysis plan. So the analysis plan determines like what you're trying to accomplish given the resources that you have. In this case, there's no, the Marvel API only has very basic information about the types of comic books and type of series the characters are involved in. There's no winners and losers. There's no information about like how the fights went. So in order to like basically project into the future, predict in the future what might happen in a fight, we have to have an understanding of who the characters are who are involved. So the API was great in getting a roster for who was involved in the fight against Thanos. It was great in the context of figuring out who won and lost based on the end of a series. But getting a little more granular and delving into the different matchups wasn't possible given that constraint. And so that during the analysis plan, the team would decide, all right, we need to delve deeper. And that's when you go through the painful exercise of, all right, let's look at different characters and figure out what to do with them.
Terry, something in the beginning that you'd said was around the data is just the data.
Yep.
I think your quote should write down. You had a way of framing it up. When I look at this data on the right side there, the strength, speed,
Yep.
it seems highly subjective, and you tried to normalize it by analyzing 3 websites.
Yep.
And you looked at outliers, you normalized again
Yep.
based on your understanding of it. You have to be a subject matter expert in this particular case.
Yep.
If we were looking at data that we weren't subject matter experts in, and we had no context for, we had never seen a superhero movie, how would you approach it differently?
Using more sources. Absent, in this case, like there's enough outliers that if you didn't know the subject well, then you get a result that's not optimal. So if you had no context for like who these characters were and what their strengths and abilities were, then I would say just either go to someone who is or pull in more information and start the process of becoming a SME.
What part of your process would you describe it as in terms of the step-by-step process you started to articulate?
that'd be the analysis plan. Yep. Because once you get data collection, context is supposed to be understood. You're supposed to fetch the data in a way that is context aware, with the focus of answering business questions that you understand. So during the business question phase and during the analysis plan, you're supposed to gain a pretty strong understanding of the environment in which you're operating and who you're trying to please with the information. So once it comes to data collection, that can be a dumb pool of information and formatting based on what you understand to be the context and the questions you're trying to answer. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay. Any questions here? The red means you're better than Thanos in a category.
And where did you get this? So column O is superior. What does that mean?
Is superior is the number of ways you're superior to Thanos, or equal to or superior to Thanos. And this is an advantage you have if you fight him.
Gotcha. What is X factor?
X factor is basically if you're superior to Thanos in certain ways, then you have an advantage. So for example, who is this? Airwalker. He's faster and he's more powerful than Thanos. So if they fought, he has two advantages over him. 3 disadvantages and 2 advantages. So an X factor is what I use to normalize the variability in a fight given advantages. So you get a 5% bump for every advantage you have over him. And that determines basically the variability in the fighting ability. So for example, Airwalker, his fighting ability would range from an 81 out of 100 to an 89 based on his X factor. So when we're projecting the fights in the future, he's going to fall somewhere between there every time. So the fights won't be the same. You fight him 100 times, he's going to have different results based on that variability and potential. But if you are, for example, a 50 overall, doesn't matter what you do, you're going to lose 100 times out of 100. Any questions? All right. So let's get into some more meat and potatoes. The next step, and sorry. The next step is I created a data mart with all this information. So I created 2 fact tables. Oh, sorry. Sure. Yep. Which is just an environment that's optimized to answer business questions. So what we have here is, again, this is an environment that's optimized to answer questions. One table is focused on answering what happened in the comics in the past. And another is focused on what happened with battles in the future. So our goal for this analysis is, figuring out how Thanos was defeated in the past and who should be involved in beating him in the future. So our tables are structured to answer those specific questions. And then we have ways to describe the battles. For example, who are the characters involved? So for the projected battles, these are one-on-one battles. We look at only the characters involved, the people involved. For the comic results, we look at the characters involved and then information about the comic books, like where does it fall in the series. And then we have different views we use to look at data a little more granularly, like who are the good guys, the bad guys, and the neutral characters. So again, the purpose here is to model the data to answer the questions that you're looking to answer. Any questions there? All right, real quick, we're going to jump. Oh, sorry, one more thing. Taking a second. So in the movie, earmuffs, Doctor Strange predicted the end result of 14 million battles with Thanos. He said there's only one outcome where the heroes win. It wasn't realistic for me to predict the result of 14 million battles, but what I did was I predicted using analytics the end result of each character fighting Thanos 150 times, using the variability in their abilities. How many times will they defeat Thanos? And the purpose of this was twofold: to figure out who to kind of line up to fight Thanos, and secondly, who to keep home. For example, there's no point if a character is intelligent but weak in battle. There's no point in having him, stand up toe to toe to Thanos. You want that person to help with the strategy, and you want the person who is strong and powerful to fight, the strong, powerful character. So it's kind of a division of responsibility in that context. So all 142 characters predicted 150 different matches versus Thanos, given the variability, and see who won, who lost, and then we have some analysis surrounding that. So really quick, let's talk through some questions we have now. Because now we're moving to the insights part of the analysis process. So which characters are most often in the comic books associated with a victory over Thanos? And I hope you guys can see this, but you probably can't. Can you guys see that? Do any names stand out to anyone in this room? Any names kind of jump out at you?
Adam Warlock.
Yeah. He was involved in 18 different victories over Thanos. Any other names? Captain America, okay, makes sense.
Captain Marvel.
Yeah, Captain Marvel.
And I guess in this context, like, can we include Wolverine, like, if we're talking about cinematic
We
universe?
we cannot,
Okay.
but we can look at the traits that he exhibits to help us determine, what we want to do with that information.
Gotcha.
And we'll get to that.
So benchmark, how many times has he been beaten?
He's been beaten. I think it was 170 times out of 300. And let's look at what are the average power stats of a hero that has been part of a Thanos defeat. And this is a benchmark for what we want to look at with regards to the heroes that we put in to fight them. So on average, their intelligence 70 out of 100, strength's around 60, speed 60. Durability is the most important category at 75. Then we have power at 68, combat 75, and the overall X factor, which is their max potential, is 73. So on average, if you're part of an effort to defeat Thanos, these are your power stats. So this is the baseline for what we're looking for in heroes to defeat Thanos. Are there any characters that are better than average in all the power stats relative to the characters that have previously beaten Thanos? And think now in terms of the characters that are in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Any names jump out of there? The Hulk. Name shows up again.
And then Adam Warlock and Captain Marvel again.
Yeah. Ancient One didn't make it out of Doctor Strange. Sorry, spoiler alert. I should say that before I said that, actually. Yeah. So again, we're seeing certain names, right? Hulk, Captain Marvel, Adam Warlock. Let's see. Which characters on the losing side most often? We're going to see some of the same names again, because if you fight them a lot, you're going to lose a lot. Adam Warlock, Thor, Hulk. They lose a lot. They fight a lot, lose a lot. Let's see. Who has the best win percentage versus Thanos? Any names stand out there? Wolverine. Deadpool.
That's interesting.
And you know what's interesting about that? What is interesting is that 3 of the 4 people who are in the top 5 are No spoiler here. Yeah. So Wolverine and Deadpool are two people who have durability ratings of 100. So we saw earlier that on average, durability was the most important category. The two people beating them at the highest clip were the most durable characters. All right, which teams have fought Thanos most often? So you see Avengers have fought him 46 times, 125, so 54%. It's not bad. You know, don't send the defenders against them. They're only 1 out of 4. Not great. And I found this interesting. According to all the different sites I looked at, what are the average power stats of the good guys, the bad guys, and the neutral guys? Is there anything stand out here?
Bad guys.
No.
Oh no.
The most powerful people in the Marvel Universe are the neutral characters. So, we'll get back to that in a minute. And who are the most powerful neutral characters? He's good.
Oh, okay.
Anyone on this list that currently exists in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Grandmaster. That's the only character who exists in the current Marvel Cinematic Universe. And let's look now real quick at who are the most durable heroes. Names that stand out.
Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel. Anyone else?
Captain Marvel.
Yeah. Yep. So we predicted the result of 21,000 fights against Thanos with each of the characters. And
How did you actually run those?
how to run them? Ran a cursor and SQL to basically predict randomly between their rating and their X factor what the round rating would be. So it's randomly, like where do they fall? So just randomly picked between their lowest point and their max point for what they could achieve. So given that context, I looked at create a Python histogram in Python that kind of shows like if the characters fought, each character fought Thanos, what percentage of the time would a good guy win? Not great. Out of 12,000 attempts, they're going to win about 600. That's about 1%.
Well, I mean, that's better than the odds that Doctor Strange gave us.
That's true. That's true. And again, this is just based on Thanos' power. His power stats. So like, the heroes already defeated. So now we're trying to figure out like going forward, who can beat him in a fight one-on-one. But let's go to neutral. Let's look at the neutral characters. If they fought Thanos, each of them fought 150 times. How many times would they win? What percentage of the time would they win? And let's see how that changed. A lot higher chance. So a neutral character has a much better chance of defeating Thanos than a good guy. So let's log that in the back of our heads. All right. And then let's get real deep here. All right. So created this report about battle analytics. Right. So looking at all the characteristics of each hero and all the projected results, let's look at the characteristics that mean the most to the ability to defeat Thanos. So this right here shows like for all the characters who are either good or neutral, who are not, we're looking at just heroes, not teams right now, what percent of the time would they defeat Thanos? It's about 9% of the time. When you look at their intelligence, this is broken up into where their intelligence lies with regards to a scale of 0 to 100 and how often they beat Thanos in a fight. So for example, the really smart people beat him about 30% of the time. Let's see how dumb people do against him. dumb people never win. So people with this intelligence level at 29 win 7 out of 1,200 times. That's not great. Yes, sir. 5 minutes? Okay. And so durability, like people who are durable win at a good clip. People who are not durable never win. This kind of shows us like kind of where we should kind of structure the team in order to best set them up to defeat Thanos. Now, a couple things real fast. We need to do 2 things to defeat him. We need to remove the Infinity Gauntlet. We need to beat him in a fight. So in order to defeat him in a fight, we need to have a closer. So who could defeat Thanos a good number of times without the Infinity Gauntlet? There's only a few characters who actually qualify as that. So what this is a chart that looks at if you fought Thanos 150 times, given your standard, with no Infinity Gauntlet, given your standard power grid, how many times you'd win. So Hulk wins 115 times out of 150. Just straight up fight. Captain Marvel wins 95 times out of 150. So you see here, like, these are people you want on your team. Once you get the Infinity Gauntlet off, you need to actually defeat him in a fight. So these are people you want on your team. You want Captain Marvel, you want Hulk. Thor wins 7 out of 150 times. Adam Warlock wins 20. So, but still, these are people you want on your team. So it's important to enlist powerful people. So let's get to the recommendations. That's the last step. What would we recommend to Tony Stark at this point? I'll go back to there's no point having analysis unless you have actionable recommendations. So this is what we're telling him that he needs to do in order to structure his team to defeat Thanos.
Do you need a spoiler alert?
You're good.
At this point, it's just, just prediction.
Yeah. First step, pretty obvious. Find powerful new friends. So in the current cinematic universe, we know Captain Marvel's coming out. She's more powerful than Thanos as a standard. With the Infinity Gauntlet, he's going to win in a fight, but she is the most powerful person in the universe next to Thanos. Adam Warlock. Name keeps coming up over and over again in the comic books. And the first thing you think is like, well, even he's not in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But he is. In the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, there is a cocoon that many people predict is holding Adam Warlock. So he's actually introduced in the series in a cocoon. And the reason why this is important is, according to his description, he's an artificially created human who was born in a cocoon at a scientific complex called the Beehive. So, he is there. We just have to use him.
I was saying that was an additional scene in the second Guardians.
Yeah, yeah.
I will name him Adam. I was like,
Yep, Adam. Yep. So he's there. Next step is, yeah. It's a post-credit scene. You need to flip a powerful neutral. The Grandmaster, he exists. Now he seemed like kind of like a non-powerful, kind of a dorky guy in the movies, but according to his power grid, he's one of the most durable and fast guys in the whole universe. So good person to have on your team. Next recommendation is to have the most durable characters lead the charge. So Thor, Captain Marvel, Adam Warlock, Grandmaster, these characters are all 100 out of 100 in terms of durability. You want them leading the charge. And part of that is, one thing from the Infinity War, spoiler alert, when Spider-Man dies, he dies a lot slower than everyone else. Spider-Man is a very durable guy. He's 85 out of 100. None of the guys who are 100 out of 100s disintegrated with a snap. So my thought is maybe Thanos tried to disintegrate Thor, tried to disintegrate some of these characters, but it didn't work. Hulk, it didn't work. So durability matters. And maybe he can't snap you out of existence if you're durable. And the final thing, recommendation is keep a closer from when you get the Infinity Gauntlet off. Hulk is the most durable, powerful person in the universe. So once you get the Gauntlet off, you need to have someone who can match Thanos' durability for durability, power for power, and that's the Incredible Hulk. Any questions?
Give it easy.